The Mirai arc comes to a heart-stopping end in another exciting episode of Boruto, Naruto Next Generations. To my knowledge, a lot of people have not been enjoying the Mirai arc. I mean, sure, there's definitely a lot of hardcore Naruto fans which will lap up anything they can get from the series, but the general consensus is that this arc has been kind of slow, involving a lot of characters that ultimately aren't that as important or aren't as popular anymore. But I can honestly say, I think that this has been one of the best arcs from the Boruto anime series, and that's surprising because it doesn't even involve the main cast. It involves a side character, but one that's connected to one of the major characters from the first part of the series, and one that's had a massive impact on the entire series overall. And this episode perfectly encapsulated what made this arc so unique in the first place, and it also gave us some really unique action for the show. If any of you have actually been watching, what's really cool about this arc right here is that we've seen the return of the Jashin Cultists. The only ones that we saw previously in the series was Hidan of the Akatsuki, and it was always a mysterious part about the Naruto series. And here, it's just as equally mysterious. In fact, the leader of this brand new group, Ryuki, actually has some unique abilities that Hidan himself never even had. I thought that this was going to be something of a retread for the series where he would actually end up utilizing the same techniques of drawing blood from someone's body and transforming into this like weird voodoo form of himself, and then he would just torture himself until he would actually end up killing people. But no, he actually applies it in a completely different way. In fact, we get to learn in this episode that the only reason he even brought all these girls to this cave in the first place was simply so that they could be the sacrifices to Jashin, and so that he could become an immortal, just like Hidan himself. And he even has his very own scythe that is a two-bladed scythe, very similar to the one that he actually had before. Initially in the preview, I thought he would be using the same weapon, but no, basically this guy is just trying to become the next generation Hidan. He's sick of the peaceful ninja era, and he wants to bring things back to the bloody way that they used to be. This is ironic in a sense, as Mirai also sort of wants the same thing. Not that she wants any big wars or a lot of people dying, but she questions what it means to be a shinobi in this day and age. In an age of peace, where really they aren't needed as much, where basically they just go on these boring guard missions and they don't get to have cool, fun ninja adventures. It isn't until this episode that she realizes that her way of thinking is not necessarily right, but she has to sort of embrace the new age in a new way. Otherwise, she could possibly go down a dark path just like this weird Jashin cultist himself. But let's actually talk about his abilities for a moment. Like I said, he is very similar to Hidan, both in looks and ideals, but the way that he actually uses the Jashin abilities are actually kind of unique. He still manages to draw blood from people's bodies, but what he does is, he actually uses this knife and this voodoo doll. And when he takes someone's blood, he actually puts it into this voodoo doll and they end up getting connected to that. What's really interesting about this is that he actually manages to take control of his victims and can actually control them a little bit like a puppet. And when he actually controls them, they actually have that sort of like weird black and white bone pattern on their face, very much like Hidan actually had. And he immediately goes after Tatsumi and he orders her to attack Mirai, but of course none of this ends up working, especially when frickin' Kakashi and Guy show up. Ryuki tries to escape and Mirai goes after him, and that's when we get the big final showdown, which is incredibly exciting and well animated. I especially love the backdrop of their battle, which was like this weird, creepy chamber that was built by the Jashin cultists, which is filled with all of these traps where these giant spikes would like explode out of the walls, kind of like something out of frickin' Indiana Jones. And Mirai manages to fight back against Ryuki in a very satisfying action scene, and it also had a very great ending to all of it, because initially it looked like she was actually caught by one of his attacks, where she gets slashed by one of his scythes, and he utilizes the same abilities of trying to control her with the puppet, and he can even attack this puppet to actually hurt her as well. So he actually tries to stab the puppet in the heart to try and kill her, knowing that if he actually kills the daughter of Asuma, she would be worth like 100 different people, and this would appeal to the Lord of Jashin, making him immortal. But there's something that he didn't realize. While Mirai is indeed the daughter of Asuma, she's also the daughter of Kurenai, and she is an expert when it comes to using genjutsu abilities, and that's exactly what she did in this battle. She actually wasn't attacked and didn't lose any blood. In fact, the blood that he actually licked from his scythe was actually that iron-rich water, which is why it tasted like blood to him, and this gave her the perfect opportunity to fight back. But in a last-ditch effort, he tries to attack, thinking that he's somehow immortal at this point, having all of these spikes explode out of the walls as he tries to attack her, but that's when she brings out her very awesome kunai that she wears just like Asuma and ends up hitting him with this big blast of wind, punching him, sending all of the spikes flying, and Ryuki slamming into the walls, defeating him and sending his crazy ass to ninja jail. It is a fantastic scene for Mirai, and it honestly was one of the more unique fights that I've seen from the series, and again just made me realize, why aren't we spending more time with this character? Why isn't she the main character? She is freaking awesome. This arc has made me such a big fan of Mirai. It is incredible. The moment that was really icing on the cake, though, was when she was getting ready to attack. You could actually see, like, the outline chakra form of Asuma around her body. Something that even Kakashi and Guy could see with their very own eyes. She didn't get to meet her father, but Asuma was always there in spirit. It was a beautiful and epic moment. And to top it all off, everything is wrapped up perfectly with Ryuki and his goons getting taken away by the ninja, and of course her returning to the village and letting Shikamaru know that she knows who the king is. The future and the children of Konoha Village. Even though she learned this, she still has to bone up on her shogi skills, but still, Mirai learned a lot on this trip. She also got the big revelation that this wasn't just a vacation, but they actually were investigating the Jashin cultists and all the people who were being kidnapped. Mirai wasn't going to be told about any of the details because if she did, according to Kakashi, she would go off on a carnivorous rampage, which, yeah, she probably would. Ultimately, this episode and this arc ended fantastically, with Mirai gaining a lot of insight into who her father was, the impact he had on the Naruto world, and a firmer appreciation for her family and lineage. In fact, the final shot of the episode of her standing on top of Mount Hokage, on top of the third Hokage's head, was so appropriate as she fully recognized who she is. What's the rundown on this episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations? I loved this episode, and I loved this arc. I'm going to go ahead and get the score out of the way right now. This was a solid 5 out of 5. Like, everything about this episode just worked, from the beautiful animation to all of the way everything wrapped up. This was the perfect way to end the Mirai arc. And I honestly thought this was just going to be kind of like a jokey kind of arc. Something, just a little side story, a little vacation for our characters to go on. But ultimately, it ended up having a lot of heart. It had a lot of what I really love about the Naruto series. The life lessons that it can tell without being too preachy about it. There are a lot of times when they use the power of friendship and stuff in the Naruto series, and it can come across as just a little sloppy. But the way everything actually worked in this arc with Mirai learning about her father, about what the king actually means in the game of shogi, everything felt really natural about this arc. And it was a really nice surprise to see how it all connected to Hidan and her father, the death of her father. Just everything just worked so beautifully in this episode that honestly, I simply can't put it into words. I can only recommend this episode if you guys have not watched it. If you have watched it, however, I would love to get your thoughts on this episode in the comment section below, and what you thought about the entire Mirai arc in general. Were you a Mirai fan even before this arc began? Did you become one after it was over? Like I said, I think she's one of the greatest characters from the second half of the series. She displays so much personality, whether it be through her actions or just the cuteness of the overall character. To me, Mirai is kind of like the full package when it comes to what makes a Naruto character great. And again, like I said, I really hope that we're going to get to see more of her and she's not just going to be put on the shelf in the future here. Again, we have to remember that this is an arc which was based on a light novel from the creators of the series, and it was specifically created for her, so there's no guarantee that we'll get to see a lot of her in the future, but considering the connection she has to a lot of the other characters in the series, I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of Mirai, and I really do hope we are. All I know is it looks like we're getting ready to move on to brand new things yet again. It looks like the big cast is going to be returning again, and hopefully things are going to kick up from here. I have no idea when they're actually going to get to the actual manga storyline of Boruto, and I kind of hope it happens soon, because the manga is just kicking it into high gear with the story that it's actually telling, and it's just as exciting, if not more exciting, than everything that's been going on with the Mirai arc, and I highly consider any of you who are like getting kind of bored of the Naruto series to kind of just accept it for what it is, be patient, and just wait. Trust me, things are about to get epic. But this arc right here, I just really loved it. I'm going to give this episode a 5 out of 5, like I said. I really enjoyed this arc. Tell me what you thought about all of it in the comment section below. What did you think of the character of Ryuki? Did you like the battle that he had against Mirai? Do you want to see her character return in the future? All that and more. Let's have a discussion about it in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel for more reviews just like this, reaction videos, discussions, topic essays, all that stuff. If you want to help support this channel, please check out my Patreon and PayPal account. You'll find links for all that stuff in the description box below. Thank you all for watching this video. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.